Next, we will have Hasib Muhammad, who is the program director at Greening Forward, a youth-driven environmental advocacy nonprofit organization whose message has reached 6,000 youth in 30 communities in the U.S., Asia, and Africa. Hasib's passion for the environment comes from his ancestral homeland of Bangladesh. He believes that every young person can make a difference through servant leadership and that everyone has a voice to be heard. Hasib, 15, is a sophomore at North Gwinnett High School in Suwanee, Georgia. Here.
Hello, hello. So a couple months ago, I came home from the most grueling day of practice ever. Due to the brutality of this sport, I came home with bruised shins, swollen ankle, and a completely ratchet look. It made me never want to go back to math team again. And to top it all off, I had an AP chemistry test the next day, and I sure wasn't gonna fail this one. So as soon as I got home, I dashed up into my room and I did what any productive teenager would do: watch TV. I found myself turning on my archaic box of a TV, sitting down on my Hello Kitty beanbag, and flipping through the channels, one after another, until it hit me. On the screen was a brilliant young lady who said something that changed my life forever. She said, and I quote, "A dollar makes me holla, honey boo boo." Now, ladies and gentlemen, Honey Boo Boo was onto something. She found her passion, what made her holler. Not everything I say is a joke. Now, passion is a compelling force that allows us to accomplish the unaccomplishable, to make possible the seemingly impossible. You may already have a passion and might not know it. Some common passions include eating, reading, underwater basket weaving. Honey Boo Boo's passion was money, and competing in beauty pageants was her way of pursuing this. Now, what is passion? We throw that word around, passion fruit. It's nothing related with this word. Now, passion is divided into two parts: the dreaming and the doing. Now, they're both equally important, but as people, I feel that we are stuck too much on the dreaming part. But don't get me wrong, dreaming big is important. That's what you're supposed to do, to shoot for the stars. But what's the point of dreaming if none of those dreams become a reality? So, excuse me. So, what are you going to do to make these dreams come true? So, because I am brown, people assume that I'm some kind of advice guru at school. So, they come up to me and they're like, "Can you please find some mystical answer to my problems?" And I'm like, "Yes." For instance, someone came up to me and they were like, "How do I pass my language arts test? Could you give me the answers?" And I was like, "No, I'm not that kind of brown person." What you should do, you have to go in mind, you want to pass that language arts test, so you're going to have to spark note it. Don't lie, we all do it. Someone else came up to me and he was like, "Hasib, I'm a good singer, but I want to be like Justin Bieber." Okay, so to become the next Justin Bieber, you have to sag your pants to obtain this level of swag. I think that's what the kids call it nowadays. You have to sing 5 octaves louder than what is humanly possible. and you have to be able to swoon over 12-year-old girls. If you can do that, you will be the next Justin Bieber. So what makes me holler? My passion is empowering young people to do big things. So, like many people, my passion stems from an experience I had when I was younger. When I was 12, my family and I visited Bangladesh, a small delta country off the Bay of Bengal where my parents were born. Now, I hadn't been back since I was a wee little squirt blossom. So I didn't know much about the country, except there was a lot of brown people, and like many other Asian countries, it was poor. But despite this, my mom used to tell me stories of her childhood growing up in Bangladesh. For instance, during lunchtime, she'd hide low in the rice paddies of her farm, and when an unsuspecting farmer were to walk by, she'd just jump up and scare the curry out of him. She also used to tell me of the time where she would watch the sunset over the lake and hear the singing of the birds. Yeah, lame. And I wanted to relive this all. I wanted to relive my mother's childhood. But, it didn't work out like that. While I wanted this to be one of those trips I could brag to my friends about, if my friend came up to me and he was like, Hasib, during my winter vacation, I wrestled an orangutan, I found a cure for cancer, and I jumped off a plane. What did you do? I'd respond by saying, sit down, son. It's not a contest. I went to Bangladesh. While I was expecting fun and adventure, I found pain and suffering. When I got off that plane, I was hit with the immediate stench of the smoggy Bangladeshi air. It hit me in the face, and it made it so difficult to breathe. And I didn't hear the tweeting of the birds over a sunset on the lake. I heard the honking of cars on the road. They're not the same. And the roads themselves, they were littered with trash and debris. It was just a total disregard for the environment. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was just the sheer amount of people. So many poor, starving people. Many of which are the poor, many of which are the sick and elderly who can't afford medications for their treatments. They have sicknesses which in the US would seem trivial. But many, many more were poor, abandoned children. Imagine, your parents left you to fend for yourself because they couldn't afford to keep you, let alone they could barely afford to keep themselves. You would have nowhere to go. You wouldn't know where you'd get your next meal. But the worst part of it all is if you were having a bad day, you wouldn't have a home to go to. And because you don't know what a home is, you don't know what love is. So, cries of despair resonated through the capital city of Dhaka. And even though I was with my family, I felt alone because at the time, I couldn't do anything about it. I felt an emptiness, not in my stomach like the millions of starving people, but in my soul. So days passed, and I visited a small park in the center of Dhaka, and even this public green space was not bereft of the constant reminder of poverty. To one corner of the park was a group of boys who were selling flowers they'd picked up from the same park to get food to eat. So I watched for a good 30 minutes as people just passed by and ignored them. Invisible children. And I felt bad. Why was it fair that I got something to eat, but these kids didn't? We were both human. What makes me different? So I went up to one of the boys with the intention of buying a flower, but I didn't know how to speak the language, Bengali. So instead, I tried English. Hello, could I buy a flower? And he just looked at me like I was an idiot. So instead, I tried the universal language understood by every single one of you, a smile. He understood what I was trying to do, and I bought a flower from him. Now, he didn't think I was an idiot anymore. He just thought I was creepy. But I felt good that I was helping someone. I could see a fire in his eyes, a fire of change, a fire of being in control of his own life. But his voice, like the millions of other children throughout the globe, was being silenced by poverty. So then I realized that in the United States, even though we are a developed country, the government or people in general are just not putting enough emphasis on young people. And I wanted people from all over the world to realize the power and impact young people could make. I wanted everyone, every child, regardless of income or where they were from, to have a voice, to be heard. So all of us young people, can be in control of our own lives. Needless to say, my passion was ignited. So I thought about, for a long time after I got home, what I could do to make an impact on the lives of others. But how could I make a difference when I couldn't even make my bed in the mornings? So instead, I asked the king of answers, the database of information. I Googled it. At first I Googled, how can a 15-year-old save the world? But unfortunately, I got back images of Taylor Lautner and Harry Potter. So that didn't help. So I decided to find a more local way to help in my immediate community, and after a couple of more searches, I found an organization based in Gwinnett County called Greening Forward. And they had an opening available for program manager. So I just went ahead and applied, didn't think much of it, and well, I guess I got the job. So, Greening Forward. It's a nonprofit organization that is completely run by young people who want to empower other young people. I like to compare what Greening Forward does to a small little sapling. A sapling, it needs some TLC to grow to a big tree. It needs some water, it needs some minerals, throw in some manure in there for good measure. Now, Greening Forward does this to young people so they could recognize their own potential. While we don't give young people manure, we give them educational curriculum because we believe knowledge is power. Through our Earth Savers Clubs, which is basically environmental clubs throughout the globe, we send them pamphlets such as how can CO2 emissions affect us, or how can we lower our carbon footprint. So now they can bring this information back to their communities. And we realize that it's not cheap to be an innovator. It's not cheap to lead the way. So because of this, we provide funding through our grants, such as we just had a grant to give to our several clubs in which it was $2,100 to test the quality of water in their area. And because they can do this now, they can bring this information back to their governments to improve their community. Personally, I believe that to tackle big issues, we need to take a more grassroots or local focus. Because if we can bring together communities of people under one common banner, such as environmental sustainability, as that's what Greening Forward does, it makes it so much easier to get things done. Oopsie doopsie. Sticky fingers. Uh-oh. Whoops, I did it again. Never mind that, it's just a picture. So, we have an organization, we lead an event called Global Youth Service Day, where we bring together different people in our community to attack a common issue. And this year in Gwinnett County, we tried to pick up litter in a park. And while this might seem small, bringing together people that have common interests is quite a powerful thing. And so, oh, yep, there it is. That's the picture. Yep. And all this didn't happen overnight. No. It took a very long time. It was a collaborative effort led by that stud, Charles Ogborn III. Now, he identified a problem in his community, litter, and he didn't wait or he didn't ask for permission to make a difference. He just went out and did it. And so he started a club in his school, Greening Forward, and it was such a small thing. But then it mushroomed into something bigger. Now, as program director of Greening Forward, I hear some pretty stupid questions. Now, don't let people tell you there aren't stupid questions, because there are. I hear, how can young people make a difference? They're too young, too naive, too immature. Well, age and maturity are two separate things. Age comes from how many years you've been alive. And maturity comes from how you've grown from different events in your life and overcome them to become a better person. I know plenty of adults who act like kids. Charlie Sheen. And I know of plenty of young people who act like adults. Oh, okay. So I'll leave you with this. If there's something you are afraid of, overcome it. If there's something you don't know how to do, learn it. And if there's something you see wrong in this world, fix it. It all comes down to finding who you are, discovering your passions, and just letting go. Thank you.